any loss is hard. So I'm not going to downplay any loss. But, for this, you're a little bit in mourning of your kids moving on, right? I say that loosely because when you're mourning a loss of somebody you're not getting back, it's different. But we still do go through some mourning when our kids leave the home. But now you're mourning two things because your kids have grown up and you're moving on, and now you're mourning your spouse. Or maybe it's been a while since your spouse has been gone, but you feel it all over again when your kids leave because you're even more aware that you're by yourself. So for any of you, not to discount how you're feeling in your life after kids with the kids growing up, because it's okay to feel sad and be mourning the loss of their childhood and feel a little bit lonely, but open your heart and mind enough to wrap your brain around a woman that's doing that now and she doesn't have her spouse anymore.
Yeah,
and be sensitive to that and be open-hearted to that person if you know them. And if you are listening, you're the person that wrote in and asked about that, like, I'm holding space for you, and I'm sure you are right now too. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life After Kids with Doctors Brooke and Lynne. I'm Dr. Brooke.
And I'm Dr. Lynne.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining us again today. We have a little bit of a tough topic, but a good one.
This comes from a question from one of our listeners. She wrote in and asked us to address life after kids living as a widow. So very, very tough topic.
Yeah, it's heavy, but she's not the only one. We've heard it from other moms too. And it's unfortunately, loss is a part of life.
Well,
and I don't say that with
so.
any minimization, because I can't even imagine. I'm not walking in those shoes, and my heart goes out to anybody that is. But it's something. We shouldn't be afraid to talk about hard topics.
No, obviously,
it makes us uncomfortable.
Obviously, she wanted us to delve into it, and
yeah,
we know that it's going to help more than just her. Hopefully, all of you. And listen, at the end of the day, when we get asked a question that is not in our direct experience, we are careful because, we haven't walked in those shoes.
Right.
So we are not qualified to directly answer to that experience. And so this is not to say we're not going to cover it, but what we can do is bring us together in the realization that the issues are the same. All of our circumstances may be a little different. Some of you are divorced. Some of you are widowed. Some of you are married. Some of you never had a spouse, maybe you had children other ways, or
single
adopted
moms.
Or single moms. And at the end of the day, despite our circumstances, the action steps forward to living a fulfilling, vibrant, exciting life all look very similarly.
They're very similar. And by the way, let's hold space for the woman who's married but feels like they're living alone. I mean, there are some of you doing that too that are struggling in your relationship. So, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because we're not psychologists. We're not therapists. And when we're talking about subject matter, it's almost always because we're living the experience, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And in the health stuff, that's where our education, that's
genius.
our zone of expertise, right? So those types of things. But this is a heavy topic, and I definitely don't want it to be minimized or to, I just think what you said was perfect. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks. We get asked this a lot. This is like a pet peeve of mine, mostly because if you're a guy, I feel you, but we'll have people jump in and be like, what about the men? What about the husbands? I get that, buddy, but I'm not a man living the life after kids experience. Then maybe that sounds really harsh, but that could be because I'm doing a 2-week cleanse and I'm feeling a little punchy right now. It's January and cleaning up my health. No, you know what? I'm losing my filter. You're going to get straight shot Dr. Lynne from here on out. Are you ready?
Yeah, you're getting I know somebody, at least one of you wrote in and said you hate the word raw, but you're getting it anyway because you're getting Lynne Mao raw, which is always a scary thing.
Unfiltered.
And also very entertaining. Unfiltered is maybe better. But listen, I feel you, because it's can we not as women just have something for our own? Let us talk as moms. This space is for moms.
Yeah. And I listen, as much as I can understand that and empathize, I'm not a man living that experience. So I always just shoot back. Well, go. This is great. This is your purpose. Go start that page. Like, you're more than welcome, because we can't speak into every single human on the planet.
Right.
We're speaking to women, roughly around 40, although they're getting younger all the time because women want to prepare for it.
Yeah, I
We
think in their
very
30s,
much love that. But 30s to,
over
all the way
60.
up
Yep.
over 60. And that's our niche.
Well, and I think when we get the men that comment, and we do love you, we're poking fun in
Do
a
we?
nice way.
Kidding.
Well, in most anyway,
Kidding,
the
not
point
kidding.
is, I think it's just that they want to know that we know that just because they're a dad, it doesn't mean they're not missing their kids too, or feeling sad or struggling with them moving on too, which that's fair. I mean,
Okay, I'm here for that.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair.
I can go there.
So anyway, let's put that aside and let's talk about the topic in hand.
Let's go back to the question.
Yes.
And my mom is a widow, and so since it's not my personal experience, I'm still married. I do have her example to go by, and I was thinking about that when I was thinking about answering this question, because she has just been a great example my whole life. Not a perfect example, but a great example.
Yeah.
And specifically of the mourning process that happens after you lose your spouse, and how to get yourself back up and keep going.
And she has been, yes, you mentioned that you were going to share experience through her experience, which is great because she had, how long ago did you lose your dad? It's been years. It's been at least 15.
It's been his anniversary of his death was just a few days ago, and it's been 13 years.
Yeah. So
hard to believe.
Right. So she was in a time where the kids were out of the house. She had grandkids, right? But
Yep.
but also, 13 years ago, it wasn't like, yeah, she was well into her senior years, right?
Right.
So
She was 67.
yeah. Yeah. So go ahead.
Still young and vibrant.
Yep.
She
still is.
And she would tell you herself, maybe it'd be great to interview her sometime, although it would be like pulling teeth to try to get her to talk to you guys on here. But she does have so much wisdom to share. If we could get her,
I always love talking.
We'll just give her Irish whiskey and sit her down.
Give her a soch.
Yeah, exactly. And get her talking. But she spent probably about 2 years in an active mourning phase. And I think that's really normal. And I don't think it's a fixed number of months or years. I think we've all had friends or relatives, or maybe it's ourselves personally, have gone through a deep mourning phase. And it's just, you have to walk through that. Mm-hmm. And that's what she did, is she got herself up and she took steps each day, like, going through the motions, and we checked on her, obviously. And it was really up to her. Nobody can make that easier for you.
Right.
It's probably a dark time, and getting used to life's new norm, and having the carpet pulled out from underneath of you, especially with a variety of circumstances. Sure. If the death is sudden, even if it's not, it's a reality that you can't fully know until the day comes. Mm-hmm. Right. And so she had that period of really walking through the motions and mourning. And I think it's important, from her example, if she had just tried to rush into something, I think she knew herself well enough not to do that.
Yeah. And I don't think you mean by rush into something like a new relationship, but just rush out of like feeling. Honestly, like she had to put it aside and do something. It could be that. It could be anything.
That wasn't her experience. It was rushing into, just a feeling of maybe, oh, okay, I should do something then to replace this void.
Right. So in other words, give yourself, let's hold space for you taking the time that you need to heal.
To mourn.
And mourn.
Grieve.
And maybe healing isn't even the word, because I don't think you don't ever fully heal from a loss like that. And I have my spouse, but I've had some really hard losses in my life too. And it always stays with you.
I would agree. Yeah. When you love someone and you give a piece of yourself to them, mm-hmm. you never quite get it back.
Right. And then
but you carry a piece of them with you.
sure. And
Mm.
I imagine, when it's somebody that you've lived with day in and day out for as long as you've been married, you go to bed with them, you wake up with them, that loss is woof, you know.
Yeah. It's it's the shared experience. It's
Yep.
I don't have the experience of a widow, but when I lost my dad, I remember that night, and I just was sharing this with a friend who lost a parent, and maybe it'll be helpful for some of you who have gone through that or going through it. That night when we, I think it was the funeral. So we had a long Irish wake, and it was the night of the funeral. So when you're, the first couple of days, you're sort of in shock,
Mm.
and you're in survival mode, right? It's like, and you're in a movie, and you're kind of watching things through like a fishbowl, like you're not even really sure what's happening. But that night of the funeral, that realization set in, and I had probably one of the most intense, like emotional releases
Wow.
I've ever had in my whole life. Cause I don't access that so easily. Right.
Mm.
I don't mean to laugh at it, but it was really true. Like I wept like I've never wept before, but it wasn't necessarily because I was never going to see him again. It was because the realization that I lost somebody who loved me so deeply, like they knew me on a level like only a parent can.
Mm.
And I'd lost that. It
Yeah.
was a loss. It was weeping for the loss of just feeling more alone than ever because of that. So I share that for two reasons. It's always good to know what to expect going into something.
Yeah.
Two, if you are trying to be there for friends that are losing parents, the only thing, literally the only thing that was comforting to me and my family in that time, everybody's a little different, but was the feeling of not quite feeling so alone.
Yeah.
So surround that person. Don't think, well, I better give them some space,
No.
or
Or I don't
I
have
don't
the
need
right
to
thing to
send
say.
flowers because their family, this loss was in a different country, and I'll send them flowers when they come home. No, like do whatever you can to show them they're not alone. They have a lot of people in their life that love you, and
Yes.
we're still here for you.
Yes. Yeah. And don't let the excuse too of just not having the right words, because you don't have to have words, just saying that you're around and that you're thinking of them or you're praying for them or whatever it is. And in particular, back to talking about a widow in this phase of life, any loss is hard. So I'm not going to downplay any loss, but for this, you're a little bit in mourning of your kids moving on, right? I say that loosely because when you're mourning a loss of somebody you're not getting back, it's different. But we still do go through some mourning when our kids leave the home. But now you're mourning two things because your kids have grown up and you're moving on, and now you're mourning your spouse. Or maybe it's been a while since your spouse has been gone, but you feel it all over again when your kids
Mm,
leave because you're even more aware that you're by yourself. So for any of you, not to discount how you're feeling in your life after kids with the kids growing up, because it's okay to feel sad and be mourning the loss of their childhood and feel a little bit lonely, but open your heart and mind enough to wrap your brain around a woman that's doing that now and she doesn't have her spouse anymore,
mm, yeah,
and
that's
be
good.
sensitive to that and be open-hearted to that person if you know them. And if you are listening, you're the person that wrote in and asked about that, like, I'm holding space for you, and I'm sure you are right now too, because that's a special kind of, like, essentially all the things that we tell you um any mom to do, and we're going to go through them to be vibrant and live meaningfully in your life after kids. For you, it's going to probably feel like more work, and you're going to have to focus on it even more because you're dealing with two losses and you're doing it more alone. You don't maybe have the support that some of us do. Does that
Yeah,
make
it's
sense?
really good point to point out. Um, yes, so let's dive into that. But before we do, one more thing on
Yeah.
being there for a friend who's
Yes,
experiencing
please.
a loss. Newsflash, there are no right words. You cannot fix it. And I think that's why people get so overwhelmed and flummoxed, because they're like, oh, I don't know what to say because I want
Yeah.
to make this better. It's a feeling of them feeling out of control because I care about you. if you are feeling like a loss for words, that gives you a point that like you actually feel bad. You're empathizing in that moment. You feel like you could make it better, but you can't. And so empathy, and we could do a whole, like, and I think we have actually done some talking about this inside of other conversations. And Brene Brown speaks about that, about how to empathize. Empathizing is just being willing to sit with somebody in the dark room, like
Right.
just being by their side, and you don't have to say anything. You're showing up. You're showing up. So don't not show up for a friend. You don't have to open your mouth in most cases.
Right.
You just your presence,
Yes.
and you know, not necessarily like pity, like that's not helpful. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. Just like, man, I love you. I'm here for you.
Yeah.
That's as simple as that. I love you. I'm here for you.
Yep.
Another clue, and this comes from Brene Brown's work, and I hear it all the time. And ever since I heard her say that, I can't unhear it. So I cringe when I hear people say it. When you say something, I can't imagine what you're feeling.
Oh.
You're actually separating yourself from them. You're saying, I can't, I know the intention is good because you're trying to say, I respect the depth of what you're feeling right now.
I'm not trying to minimize it.
I'm not like, I am trying to point out, like, we are, like, I'm aware of what you're going through is huge.
Yeah.
That's the statement that you should make. But when you say, I can't imagine, and we're trained to say it, it's like not the worst.
I say it all the time.
You know what I mean? I can't imagine what you're going through.
Yeah.
You have good intention, but the result leaves that person feeling more alone. Because what you're saying is, I'm not at that place. I don't share that feeling, and I can't get there with you. So maybe I guess there are no right words, but there are some words that make us feel more alone than others. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, that's important to point out if you're on the end of supporting somebody who has lost a spouse or somebody, anyone in their life. Those are really important things to be aware of. So yeah, I'm glad that you shared that. Thank you for being vulnerable there.
Yeah.
What else before we get into just our basic tips? But like, is there anything else you can pull from Betty, your mother? Like,
yeah,
I'm sure
so
you have a lot of things you could say.
Circling back, because there's more to learn there, but
Yeah.
you definitely give yourself that morning time. And then I think what we watched her do as her daughters was to pull herself up by the bootstraps when she was feeling, I mean, after every winter, there comes a spring.
Yep.
And it's the same with our Life After Kids season, right?
Yep.
It can feel like winter, but spring is coming.
Yep.
And she just sort of, eventually those just the footsteps felt a little heavier, or a little less heavy, rather, is what we kind of observed. So it got a little easier for her to take steps forward. And she just wasn't going to settle for sitting around the house and feeling sorry for herself. And she wasn't also going to burden her children with her life and us taking care of her or worrying about her. So, and I know, speaking from my mom, like, she really is one of the, when we talk about like selflessness or quiet contribution, she does it to a fault where she will harm herself before she will burden someone else. So again, not suggesting you go to that place. That's just, in the end, it's working for her because she has learned to set boundaries, but it's how she's lived her life. I think what she did was, she didn't want us to worry. She didn't want to, she knew she had life to live. So she just got out there. And we talk a lot about volunteering and purpose. She kept working part-time. She had the fortune to alter her schedule. She kept volunteering, and social aspect was still. So my mom's a big introvert, and my dad was a huge extrovert. So they did have quite a lot of social friend connections and, friend group things. She doesn't do quite as many, but to her credit, she has prioritized that. And she gets out there once a week. They have card club, and, she'll go to lunch, and she's just, and she, a lot of times she makes the effort. Like, I see her, she'll go to the mall by herself. Like I'm
Wow.
calling her and she won't sit around the house. She
Mhm.
will do something. And even if she doesn't have someone to do it with, she's gone to the movies by herself. She will just go do it. Like, just do it. The Nike slogan.
Yeah. That reminds me of an interview we did um a month or two ago with someone, and she was talking about how she has a standing Wednesday night movie night. And she said, I will text my friends, I text them all and say, this is the movie I'm going to tonight. Here's the time. You're welcome to join me. Don't feel like you have to. I'm going either way. And she's like, and there's times that I'll go and there will be several friends joining me. There's times that I go and it's just me. And it's fine. But it gets me out of the house. Now she had not she has her husband, but her husband travels extensively for work. So when he's gone, he can be gone, right?
That was one of my favorite conversations and favorite tips to come out of this entire year and what we learned with
Yeah.
all of the wonderful women that we spoke with. That
Yeah.
was genius. So she sends out an email, right? Or a text
Her
every
text her
Wednesday in
friends.
the morning and says, this is the movie.
Yeah.
And, she doesn't take it personally because frankly, it's probably like if it's a really good movie, a lot of more people are showing
Right.
up. But if it's not, but it's a way for her to see these people in her life and provide this like standing invitation, but not have any pressure attached to
Right.
it. It's beautiful. I was like stealing that.
And not for her to feel bad if they don't show up, because she's going to do it anyway, because she's doing it really for herself. And if they want to join, even better. But if not, it's okay. She's still going to do it. And things like that. She also had like a weekly dance class that she took, like she was learning salsa. So ways that you can, and you might be pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, but it's if you are living, if you are, so again, you could be a widow, you could be divorced, you could be a single mom. Whatever the case, if you're living your life without a spouse or a partner in the house, for you are going to need to be pushing yourself probably a little more out of your comfort zone and pushing yourself more to make new friends and to meet people and have things that you do to stay active. Because the one thing I heard you say, which is really important, and again, like I hate to even say this, so you could take it for with a grain of salt if you want, because I'm not in those shoes. I always say, like, don't judge someone or speak until you've walked their shoes. But um, one thing I heard you say is that your mom did not want to be a burden to her daughters, and she didn't want them to feel like they had to step up to make sure she was living her life in a happy way. And I think that's a really big, that's probably a hard thing, especially, if you have just recently suffered a loss or recently divorced or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I think we could all agree that we don't at any time, we would hope that we wouldn't be that our kids would feel free to live the life that they want to live and and have their own families and do their own things without having to um be taking care of us.
Yeah. Well, and I think the cool part, if you use my mom as an example, because that was never her intention, the truth is that we all want to take care of her. Like, I wish she would come visit me more and stay longer.
Yeah.
I talk about that in the book quite a bit, and she doesn't, but because she's got her own life to live. To her credit, good for her. She's living her own life.
Yeah.
Um, but I bring that up because it has like ironic uh, result of when you put someone else first, when you put your kids' needs first, they will, law of reciprocity, they will potentially do that for you. And that's what
Yes.
it's gotten for her, is like by her placing our needs above her own and really keeping us at the forefront. She now basically, her whole family just worships her and wants to take care of her and wants to spend time with her, but she's too busy because she's got Card Club
She's
on
living her life.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I love. I love.
Right. And she also travels quite a bit with
She loves to
friends.
travel.
She travels. I mean, the things that she's done. She just recently did a riverboat cruise, a European riverboat.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, she watches her money, and many people in that age group do. So, I mean, I think she'd like to do more, but she does what she
She does what she can.
can, and has just the ball doing it
Yep.
from what I can tell. So,
And by the way, like, let's also, like, again, easy for me to say, don't, you don't want to be a burden to your kids, because I'm not walking those shoes. And that was what's right for your mom. But you could also, we have to hold space for everybody and all of our walks. And for some of us, we might be in a situation where our kids want to help us out, and it's so like,
It's
the
okay to,
example,
I said, I mean, there's some things to
everybody's
her that she does to a fault.
right. So, in the example I would give there is, Ken, my husband's mom, he was an only child. She was an only child. When his grandfather, who helped raise him, was really like a dad to him, passed away. Um, his grandmother moved in with his mom. She was single, so it made it easier. But, and I think when
Ken's mom.
Ken's mom, had got cancer, I really think that that's probably some of what kept her alive as long as it did, because she had the purpose of having her mom there and helping her out and taking care of her. So my point is, like, let's not judge anyone and speak a blanket for everyone, because everybody's family life looks a little different, right? But still, even in that, even with Ken's grandmother moving in with his mom, even in that, his grandmother had so many things going. She had a bowling league that she went to. She had friends that she had lunch with weekly. She found her things and her people and things to do. And again, it goes back to, for any of us in this phase of life, is finding that. Listen, here's the thing. We harp on how important connection is for longevity, not just happiness, but longevity, how important relationships are. And we've talked to you many times about the Waldinger study out of Harvard that shows this, the longest running study in human history, that shows that above all the things that we do in our life, even the way we eat, the most important thing for happiness and longevity is our relationships and connection. And so if you find yourself in a situation in life where you don't have somebody that you're living with for whatever the reason is, like, you, again, divorced, widowed, single, whatever it is, you are going to be somebody that needs to work even harder to find those meaningful connections for yourself through friends or for groups or through church, like whatever that looks like. That's going to be key for you.
Yes, it does. It can take some courage and some bravery to live that way. It really does. And
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what we're getting at the point. That's what we're getting at when we don't come out and say that. Be bold, be brave, be courageous. But that's, I think those are some of the tenets of what it takes to live a great life
Mm-hmm.
at this phase.
And be and
Qualities.
yes, and be really aware of that in your surroundings, like, because that can be hard, like that. It The number one thing too that we hear from other women is feeling lonely or having difficulty making new friends. So if that's you and you're struggling, take a step back for a second and think about the moms that you know in your life that maybe don't have a spouse or a partner for whatever reason, and go the extra mile for them, because
Great.
they're
Yeah.
probably struggling with friendships just like you, and their kid, now that their kids are out and they have more time for it. I know somebody in particular, and I'm not super tight with, but she lost her husband when her kids were young, and she never remarried. But like, been I've texted her several times because her last child just went to college, and just to check in and not point out like, oh, you're all by yourself, but just like, check in and like, how are you doing? We've got to have dinner. We've got to, because for me, of all the people that I could reach out to, her in particular would be somebody that I really want to check in on.
It's great. Love that. Be that friend.
Yep.
So what we're getting at and what you're coming around, you brought us there so beautifully, is that we all, despite our circumstances, have some of the same needs right
Yes.
now.
Yes.
And so we can just use this conversation as a review of that,
I
because
think
whether
so.
you're a widow or married or divorced or what have you, we all need that. We all have that basic need for love and connection. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And variety. We have a need for variety,
Yep.
right? So we speak a lot about that novelty, changing things up. Whether you're a widow, you're whatever your marital status, you're likely to get bored. So you're going to need to, have new things and new stimulus and think just even little small ways that you're testing your brain. But
Sure.
we also have the need for sameness and consistency and stability, right? Peace and harmony.
Yep.
Significance, purpose. That's where the purpose piece comes in. Growth and contribution, which we've talked to about as well. And in Life After Kids, we kind of lump those needs and we break them up into 4 different pillars.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to just give us a refresh on what those are and the significance of each one of them, like a sort of a high level view of each pillar and what to focus in on, because we're all here for a more meaningful, vibrant, fulfilling life.
Yes.
You're not going to get there if, for instance, you're missing one of the pillars, the first one being physical health. So you
Yes.
need your physical health. So what do as a widow in Life After Kids? You focus on your physical health.
Right. And I think that, and then the second to that would be emotional balance and stress management. Those are two of the we have purpose, we have physical health, we have emotional balance and stress management, and then taking good care of yourself, physical appearance, and your personal space, right?
Yes, because you only act as good as you feel about yourself.
Right. And you can only stay as clear headed and focused, we believe, as your immediate surroundings are. So, and sometimes again, you have to act the way you want to feel. So in this case, especially if it's a more recent loss, and not even, like you said, your mom mourned for 2 years. So sometimes you feel it, it doesn't even have to just necessarily be like a month has gone by. You're
Yeah.
always going to feel
Well, and
that.
that's the reason I brought that up, because it's, if you're a widow, and we're not, whoever wrote in with this question, we're not sure, we didn't get those details, but if you're trying to move into a space that you're not quite ready for,
Mm-hmm.
just settle down in the terms of like giving yourself
The grace.
peace and time
Yes.
to process.
Right. But also you have to, and I think I heard you say this with your mom, is slowly start to take those steps, even if you don't feel like it. So maybe the last thing you want to do is worry about or think about what you're eating because you want all the comfort food. But when you're eating garbage, you're going to feel like garbage, and that's going to add to any emotional weight that you're carrying. So it's important to look at those things. It's important to look at, am I moving my body every day? Do I have tools in place that will help me manage my stress? Again, do I have good connections and relationships? Sometimes you just need to get up and put on some lip gloss and fix your hair a little bit. Like, go through the motions, lay the foundation for these things.
And we're
Start to
speaking to every woman
every
here.
woman. This doesn't mean just it regardless of your relationship status. um or marital status, whatever you want to call it. These are important things for all of us. So, I hope this was a beneficial conversation.
I do too.
I think that if nothing else, to wrap up, be if you, let's hold space for the people that are not living the life that we are, for the moms that are traveling a different road, right? Hold space and be aware and show up for people when they need it. And all of us can work on these things that we're talking about.
Perfect. I love that.
So,
Very good.
ladies, thank you so much for joining us again today for another episode of Life After Kids. It's always a pleasure to have you. Make sure you're keeping up to date with everything that's happening on our social media feeds: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. If you prefer to watch us instead of listen, we're on YouTube. And the website is www.lifeafterkids.com, where you will find all of our free resources, the blog, and so much more. So please head there if you need anything. And don't ever be afraid to reach out, DM us, email us, whatever that looks like. We answer things personally. So if you have a question, if you have a topic you want us to talk about, let us know.
I mean, this whole conversation came from
Yeah.
a listener question. So we really appreciate that. And we love that you're here with us on this journey.
Yep. Thank you so much, ladies. Have a great day and an even better week.